Hi, Asahi here. This is my recap for the anime Suicide Squad Isekai. If you dig my recaps, don't forget to subscribe and smash that notification bell. Harley Quinn asks all the hostages how it would be if everyone went to a wonderful world where all the food is delicious and every bed is warm and cozy. In the middle of her speech, a man sees the gag in his mouth fall off and begs for his life in front of the woman. Suddenly, the Joker calls his beloved, who eagerly declares that she will take all the guests to this new world. Meanwhile, in a highly technological operating room, some scientists manage to initiate a test, which is permitted by the boss, who observes the results through the room's glass. When the police arrive to free the hostages held by the Joker, one of them tries to warn that a bomb is attached to his body, but it's too late. The device explodes and devastates the entire floor, a scene that the Joker highlights with a soundtrack played by himself. Police officers set up a barrier of cars to prevent passage, but Harley Quinn fires a rocket launcher at the barricade while her husband dodges the debris flying through the air. According to the Joker, this is the new world he wanted. Then he tears open the bags of money he stole, making the cash fly everywhere and attracting the crowd like flies around dung. The Joker doesn't just find the modern world ugly, he finds it unfair. Meanwhile, the experiment was losing power, but the boss orders even more pressure to be put on the machine to generate a surge that could finally open the desired portal. Soon the load is set to maximum, triggering the alert signal as the body of a woman used in the experiment suffers from the overload inside the machine. Playing his song without missing a single note, the Joker is sure that even those bourgeois living in luxury, giving orders day after day to their lackeys, know that this world is unfair. Harley Quinn questions if everyone from the richest to the poorest wants to abandon ship and go to this other place, so the clown affirms once again that this is the new world. Emotionally, his beloved uses her baseball bat to send a few more blessed souls there. In the Joker's mind, humanity's desire for an alternative life stems from the soul of each individual, who constantly screams inside that this is not their true self. However, people lack the courage to take the next step to free themselves from this prison, and that's the task of Gotham City's most explosive couple. But of course, such hard work requires a few stops to refuel, and that's what they do when Harley Quinn pulls the handbrake to stop the car in front of a bar. That place looked more like a funeral, with grumpy men ignoring the clown's presence. Soon she approaches the bartender and asks for an extremely sweet drink, also questioning if by chance KJ took a day off. The bartender replies that he caught a cold as far as he knows, but Harley says she just made up that name. Upon hearing this, the man tries to react, so she knocks him out with a glass bottle. In the research room, the experiment was going from bad to worse, with its intensity getting out of control. Despite this, the boss demands that the process continue. While Harley Quinn deals with the thugs inside, outside, the Joker does the same until military units come to reinforce the police firing at the target's car. Escaping the eye of the storm, Harley tries to contact her sweetie until a samurai steps in her way. Harley has no idea what a 12th century Japanese warrior wants with her, but this opponent doesn't seem to have time for small talk as she attacks without giving explanations. In an intense battle between the two, Harley feels she's not dealing with an ordinary bar thug, and soon the samurai's skill with the sword puts her on the ground. Using whatever she finds along the way, Harley creates obstacles to flee until she breaks a pipe off the wall that could now be used as a weapon. Ironically, even though the pipe balanced the fight, the clown threw it away, trying to hit her opponent, creating a clear disadvantage again. In no time, she is subdued by the samurai, so as her last words, she asks the swordswoman if she uses a flat iron on her hair. Meanwhile, the mass of energy around that green sphere finally bursts and disappears, so the experiment leader smiles. When Gotham's soldiers control Harley, one of them tells the samurai that the Joker has escaped. As always, his beloved promises she will find her way back to the love of her life. Back in the operating room, with everyone involved absolutely exhausted, the woman leading the project celebrates the opening of a portal to a new world. 6 months later, at one of RGUS's bases, a government agency, a man complains to his superior that if anything goes goes wrong with her plan, it will fall on him because all this involves supervillains. In response, the boss highlights that since this man took office, there has been an alleged shortage of supplies that should come in and out of the asylum, and to avoid a deeper investigation into this little problem, the man should shut up and do as she says. Soon the woman orders to open the door where Harley Quinn is imprisoned. The girl asks the staff to wait for the best part of the cartoon to end, but the Argus boss invades the cell and forces the clown to do a job for the government agency. The man who took care of Harley in prison confronts her, grabbing her face with his hand and demanding at least a thank you for the special treatment, so she kicks the guy in the groin, saying that only one man in this world has access to her body both romantically and physically. Controlling the prisoner with a taser, the boss orders the guard to open the next cells. Then he says again that it's crazy to release all this scum. The woman agrees because it's impossible to change the world without a bit of madness. After some time, Harley Quinn wakes up next to a guy and says she'd rather have a needle in her forehead than wake up looking at the ugly face of the man next to her. The man complains that he couldn't have fallen into a worse hole than next to this crazy woman. Then another guy corrects his posture, saying that's no way to treat a lady. Wanting to know who this flashy guy is, the two move closer to his face, and he feels offended for not being recognized as he is an actor. Besides the three of them, a weirdo with a bag over his face claims he needs the mask to avoid compromising the mission. After all, this is a noble cause that cannot be wasted. Next, an agent sarcastically comments on how well the prisoners are getting along, but the cultured man just wants to know if it's time to get out of this filthy carriage and stretch his legs. Luckily for him, they have all arrived at their destination, and now it was time to listen to Amanda Waller. The head of Argus Waller informs them that the 5 criminals will work on a mission for the government alongside Agent Adam, and if the mission is successful, their sentences will be reduced. The objective is to create and protect a series of beachheads that will serve as bases for research and resource exploitation in a certain region. One of the prisoners asks why the hell they would work for the government, so Amanda explains that she has implanted bombs in their necks that can be activated whenever she wants. Additionally, they function through signal waves. If anyone leaves the established perimeter, they will also turn into soup after 72 hours. In other words, anyone who disobeys her orders dies. Moreover, Amanda mentions that one of them has a daughter, which makes the father furious, and he swears to kill that woman if anyone touches his daughter. However, with the clear advantage in the negotiation, Amanda perceives that they all agree to cooperate and disconnects. Without delay, Adam informs the team members that they must use the equipment in the wooden boxes and prepare for the mission immediately. By the way, one of them asks where the 5th team member is, and suddenly a crash occurs in the plane. Adam goes to check and finds the 2 pilots dead with the front windshield shattered. The officer tries to pilot the plane but fails, so they all crash to the ground. Outside, a war between 2 strange civilizations is taking place, and a human commander sees the plane crash and goes to check the strange invasion in his world. Harley Quinn looks at Agent Adam and notices that he is also dead, and a sword stuck in the plane allows her to cut her bonds. Not knowing where she is, she steps out of the vehicle and almost falls into an endless sky, but is saved by her colleague at the crucial moment. As for the show-off, to find a decent way out of the plane, he reveals a huge clay arm that destroys one of the doors. Stunned to see that he is a metahuman, the others discover why only that guy had that sinister protection mechanism. Once outside the vehicle, they see a dragon flying in the sky, and Harley Quinn asks if they ended up in the world of the Lord of the Rings by any chance. Observing the battle from afar, the guy with the clay arm praises the set of this place, but can't identify which studio produced all this. Suddenly, the monsters fighting approach the invaders, confused by the steel machine they brought and their strange appearances. The clay man asks where the producer of this film is, then one of the alien boars gives him the message by almost stabbing his spear in the guy's middle. Seeing this gesture, Harley Quinn realizes that these are clearly hostile creatures, so she prepares to face them, while King Shark reveals himself with all his fury, attacking the enemies without hesitation. Harley Quinn joins the show just as the hooded man joins the fight against those extraterrestrial wild boars. With a very convincing speech, the Punisher states that he will annihilate in a bloodbath all those who oppose peace. In another part of the conflict, Clayface shows his true monstrous face, which he uses to crush more opponents around. Lastly, Deadshot aims at the leader of the enemy legion to end the fun, but his vision is too bad, so he he climbs the plane to get a clear shot. With his supernatural aim, he hits the leader of the boars in the forehead, causing the others to flee. Then the humans of this world appear again, and their commander feels threatened upon seeing that shark man eating corpses on the battlefield. Deadshot shoots the man's sword and convinces him that they are on the same side, including that giant shark over there. However, the unknown warrior uses magic to retrieve his sword, surprising everyone, so Clayface claims to have understood what's going on. He uses his acting skills to inform them that he came in peace to this world, while celebrating that he was finally blessed with a real role. Harley Quinn asks what he's talking about, so he turns and mentions the dragons, orcs, and magic everywhere, then reveals that this can only be the world of Alice in Wonderland. On the other hand, as they say, it could also be an ice sky. Convinced of this, Clayface asks to be taken to the king of the inhabitants of this world because he came to bring peace to these lands. However, he ends up behind bars along with the rest of his mission colleagues. Meanwhile, somewhere on this mysterious planet, the samurai informs an unknown group that the new intruders have arrived. Amidst the poverty of one of the villages surrounding that place, a carriage more expensive than the entire neighborhood carried the queen, attracting the local people who were starving and desperately begging for any food the pompous monarch could grant. Around the carriage, the guards pushed the hungry population away, protecting the monarch as she made her way to her castle. Inside, in a meeting between the nobility and the high ranks of the army, everyone despised the peasants and their inability to act against Her Majesty, who had marched to the front lines to boost the troops' morale. For this reason, a noble suggested that a grand celebration be held, but Cecil, one of the officers, complained that the starving people should be the priority instead of petty parties. Cynically, the nobles questioned whether it was wrong to celebrate the soldiers' victory or even the queen's glory. Soon, the queen herself declared that this little battle could not be considered a victory, and only when all the brutes of that empire had been exterminated would this war have a victor. Speaking of which, although the intervention of those unknown intruders had been decisive in the last conflict, the queen demanded that they all remain imprisoned because she considered this a very trivial matter. Cecil argued that they could be used to the empire's advantage, so the queen responded that this man had become too full of himself after saving the kingdom and receiving the sacred armor from the princess. Unable to argue further, the knight remained silent, and the queen dismissed everyone, instructing them to have plans for the next battle on her desk by tomorrow. Princess Fiona insisted on the issue Cecil had raised and considered the possibility that the intruders were sent by the empire, but the queen reminded her that the matter was already settled. Later, watching the village children fighting over a piece of bread, Fiona looked into her room and felt bad seeing the hot, well-prepared food she received every day, even though it had been a while since she herself had eaten anything. At the princess's request, Cecil appeared and saw the girl's plate full once again. He then said that her depriving herself of food would not feed the population. Not wanting to get into the subject, Fiona argued that she had lost her appetite again while asking for the knight's help. In the next scene, during some interrogation, a guard commented on Harley Quinn's file, mentioning her real name, Harleen Quinzel, a former psychiatrist at Arkham Asylum, where she fell in love with the Joker during his sentence there and helped him escape. One of the officers considered that this was not very intelligent behavior for someone with a doctorate, and that this clown must be wanting to live out some distorted fantasy like the heroine of a romance. Amidst the men's laughter, she retorted by commenting that prison guards were failures who couldn't make it into the police force, causing the two to lose patience and electrocute the woman. However, as always, there was the Joker to save his beloved, extending his hand to save her day. However, it was all just a dream, and Harleen Quinn had spent the entire night in a prison cell, becoming more certain that reality was a pain in the neck. Meanwhile, Deadshot would love to know what the hell was going on, so Clayface informed him that they were not welcome there since they were prisoners. Deadshot thanked him for the incredible deduction by the Clay Sherlock Holmes, but nonetheless Clayface believed they should be treated as heroes since they had won that battle and could be changing the kingdom's fate with their heroic services instead of rotting behind bars. Since that wasn't quite what was happening, the actor considered that the writer of this story didn't understand the basic principles of a narrative. Hearing that, Deadshot understood why he had never heard of this actor, assuming he was just an unknown starlet, always asking to change every detail of the script he didn't like. Interrupting the discussion for a more urgent matter, Peacemaker pointed out that it had been 12 hours since their helicopter crashed. In other other words, if Amanda had told the truth about the explosives they were carrying, the group had only 60 hours to get back to the helicopter before their heads exploded. Confused, Harley thought this guy was working for the government, but he explained that he worked only for peace and justice, and if Amanda could offer that in some way, he wouldn't hesitate to be part of it. Anyway, Clayface didn't know how this story would unfold, but he didn't think staying there would bring anything good, so he got up towards the bars and crossed the cell with his clay form to give a little push to the narrative, reaching the part where the hero leaves his friends behind and grows with their sacrifice, a beautiful cliche of any decent movie. Outraged by this bad speech, the others shouted for the guards, alerting them to an escape, so the guards arrived and placed a shackle on the actor that nullified his powers. Following this, the prisoners were taken for their first meal in the prison, although they couldn't quite say what was served to them. Deadshot asked if Clayface would now do the favor of escaping with everyone, but he lamented that this was no longer possible. Suddenly, a group of huge orcs approached the protagonists, warning them that this was their place and that the uninvited were infesting the benches with the rotten smell of humans. The language the monsters spoke was incomprehensible, but Deadshot believed that communication in a prison was the same everywhere, so he got up. Clayface commented that it would have been better if they had woken up the shark to solve this impasse with a fight, but unfortunately they had no such luck. For this reason, the guy would have to use his acting skills, once again complimenting the ogre leader on his imposing posture that attracted everyone's attention. Deadshot questioned if the guy understood the language of these creatures, but the actor explained that he was just suggesting their speech through the ogre's facial expressions, a basic skill in the acting field. However, the monster didn't seem to be on the same wavelength as the man, so it punched him in the face and burst out laughing along with its companions. Despite this free display of strength, Harley Quinn challenged the ogre by burping in its face and throwing her bowl at the monster's hand. Enraged, the ogre attacked the girl, who managed to fight back while the peacemaker took care of the other two. After striking a victorious pose, the guards arrived and demanded the wand, causing the prisoners around to panic, leaving the humans confused. Soon the guards arrived with magical batons that floated the brawlers and subdued everyone. As punishment, one of the guards ordered all of them to be taken to disciplinary cells. Thrown in with the rest of the team, Harley Quinn was already fed up with this bizarre contraption. These guys used to keep them under control, and Deadshot reminded her that Clayface had said that magic and such nonsense were possible in this so-called ice guy. Then, from a dark corner of the cell, a man introduced himself as Rick Flag, an Argus agent, and recognized Harley Quinn, the partner of the infamous Joker, Gotham's clown prince of crime. To the surprise of Harley's teammates, who didn't know she was such a notorious figure in the criminal world, Rick also mentioned each member of the group's name and assumed they were the new reinforcements Amanda said she would send. Harley asked what this was all about, so Rick explained that they were not the first ones sent by the government to this world. Rick had been responsible for leading the first squad tasked with making contact with the new planet, which is connected to Earth through a portal. This information pleased Clayface, who confirmed his suspicion that this was an ice guy. Deadshot questioned why they had chosen this place, and the Argus agent emphasized that the government was willing to go to hell in search of natural resources because the American monopoly in the international market was what kept the war machine's budget afloat. With that said, Deadshot realized that he and his colleagues had been sent on this futile mission as a bunch of disposable criminals, as if they were in a suicide squad. Speaking of which, Rick Flag assumed that Katana was the leader of this team since he would need to be replaced. Harley informed him that the person in charge was a guy named Adam, who became pig food in the helicopter. Moreover, Peacemaker didn't forget to mention the bomb they had on their necks. So the government agent affirmed that he would help them escape because he believed the signal controlling the bombs must come from the other side of the portal, and the squad needed to be taken there before the worst happened. The new detainees complained that they couldn't trust the guy who worked for the organization that implanted a bomb in them, but as Rick Flag pointed out, they didn't have many options at this moment. Suddenly, King Shark woke up from his long sleep and smelled blood around him, ravenous once again, so he approached the group of humans, who began to panic. In an attempt to control the beast, Rick mentioned the word Nana, which is the animal's real name. Taking advantage of the shark's childlike brain, the agent told him there was plenty of food outside, and he could get it with all his friends from inside the cell since everyone there was hungry too. Without delay, the animal forced the cell bars, and with the encouragement of his fellow prisoners, he freed everyone. One of the guards arrived just in time and prepared his wand to arrest the fugitive, but Deadshot used a stone as a projectile to stun the guard, then Harley used the wand as a bat to smash the guy. Taking advantage of the situation, Clayface grabbed the key to his magic shackle and regained his powers. With them, the anti-hero opened all the prison cells with his clay keys and noticed that he was even stronger in this strange world. Having freed all the prisoners, the Suicide Squad encouraged each of them to fight for their freedom, but they all had to face the challenge of the guards with their magical wands once again. Just as before, the squad was immobilized by that mysterious spell, but the criminals managed to escape this time and fight back with their powers, continuing the escape. Paving the way through each corridor with violence, humans, ogres, and a shark united to form the riot that would grant the prisoners a chance to reach the outside of that dungeon. Meanwhile, Cecil was being transported by one of the kingdom's carriages and recalled Princess Fione's earlier request. On that occasion, she expressed her desire to speak with the intruding girl and her group because they were responsible for changing the course of the previous battle according to the reports. Cecil knew he had said in the meeting with the Queen that the prisoners could be important, but he was talking about the weapons of these intruders, as in a war everyone involved must do everything to gain an advantage in the conflict. However, no one knew who these people were, and that could be extremely dangerous, especially for someone like the princess. Still, Fione insisted on talking to that group because she wanted to help in any way she could to put an end to this endless war. Whatever they had planned, upon arriving in front of the prison, Cecil saw the place taken over by flags and graffiti. Inside, the prisoners were celebrating until Harley Quinn saw the arrival of the visitors. Rick Flag was furious to see his mission mates wasting time with this nonsense.